Command Sergeant Major Bill Ryan, U.S. Army, retired. When I landed on Omaha Beach in the morning of 6 June 1944, I was assigned to Company I, 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. I was regular Army, believe it or not. I enlisted. And these are all draftees, and some of them were in their 20s. I was the kid, I was 18. They called me the kid. And some of them were 22, 24, and we used to call, the platoon sergeant was the old man. He was 24 years old. Now, I joined the outfit in March 44, so I only had March, April, and May to really meet these guys. And you only knew the guys really in your platoon, because the battalion wasn't together until we shoved off. Now I'll tell you a funny one. Did you ever see the movie The Big Red One? Okay. You know who wrote it? Sam Fuller? Sam Fuller was in my company, Company I. He was a writer from Hollywood, a draftee, and the old man used to let him run around free because he had an old 16mm camera. He used to take movies all the time. Everybody knew Sam Fuller, and everybody was trying to get into his 16mm camera because we figured he was going to make a movie when he got back to the States, you know. But he's the one guy I remember, him, and of course Captain Richmond, the company commander, great guy, real hero, real hero. Well, we loaded at Portland, Weymouth, England, on the 3rd, the morning of the 3rd, because we were supposed to invade on the morning of the 5th. They canceled the invasion because of bad weather, but they wouldn't let us back into the port because there was too many ships. So we had to steam up and down in the English Channel, and the weather was still rough as hell. And most of the guys on board the ship were sick, of course, because they couldn't get up. The only thing that saved me was I was Merchant Marine. I went in the Merchant Marine at 16, the day after Pearl Harbor, so I was not seasick. I was one of the very few soldiers on that ship that wasn't seasick. So finally, on the morning of the 6th, about 2:30, they called us up on deck. I was on a British troop ship, by the way, Empire Anvil, British troop ship. And the last meal on the American ship was steak and eggs. We had macaroni and cheese on this British troop ship, macaroni and cheese. That was our last meal before we hit Omaha Beach. So about 2:30 in the morning, we finally got on the landing craft. We didn't have to go down the scramble nets because they had the landing craft right abeam with the deck, the boat deck, and we were the first troops landed. So as soon as the first 2 boats cleared the bow of the transport, they were sunk. They were swamped. So each rifle company had 6 boats. So we had 4 boats left. So the 4 of us started in for the beach. Now we couldn't see the beach because of the smoke from the Navy gunfire and the fires and what have you. Also, there was supposed to have been a Coast Guard picket boat at the line of departure to tell us we were on the right way and to lock and load our weapons. The boat was sunk. Well, we were all scared, but we weren't really that scared because you always think it's not going to be me. It's the other guy that's going to get hit. It's not going to be me. That's infantry philosophy. It's not me. It's going to be somebody else. And we had great training from the old-timers from Africa and Sicily. They taught us what to do. In other words, they said, when they drop the ramp, you don't go out the ramp because that's where the machine gun is waiting for you. You go over the side. I was scared, but you're not really that scared. Number one, everybody around you is scared, but you don't want to act scared in front of your buddies. You know, this stuff, apple pie and ice cream and democracy, that's crock of bull. We infantry guys, you were fighting for your buddy, the guy on the right and the left of you. You didn't want to let them down. That's what it was all about. And you really didn't think you were going to get hit. Never dawned on me that I'd get hit. We couldn't see any landmarks, and the current and the tide was going to the east, and it blew us away from our beach. So by the time we came back in close, the smoke had lifted a little bit, and we saw there were boats in there, and we knew where we were by then. But when we were coming in, the beach was completely covered with smoke. We couldn't see any landmarks, and there was no boat at the line of departure to tell us we're on the right heading. We veered off course and heading toward Arromanches, the British beach. When Captain Richmond realized what was wrong, we turned around and came back. So instead of landing at 6:30, we didn't land till 0800. Now the beach was still hot, but if we had landed at 0630, I wouldn't be here today. But anyways, the last 4 boats, we couldn't get ashore because all the boats from Easy Red on the right flank had come over and fouled our beach, so it was circling. We were about 400 yards off. When we came in, we turned to go in, we were about 400 meters off. And that's when they started hitting us. As we're circling, all 4 of our boats was knocked off by 88s and by mines. My boat was hit, was blown up in the air. All I remember is hitting my head against the bulkhead. I say it was an 88, and they say it was a mine. because they had mines on all these obstacles as we went in. I think it sounded to me like an explosion in '88. That's what did most of the damage, was the '88. You know? But it hit us on the right-hand side, and the boat went over this way. So my head, you know, went this way. Because I was one of the first 4 riflemen. I was right up in the front, right behind the ramp. The whole idea was the 4 riflemen were supposed to rush ashore and start shooting at people. You know, first sergeant didn't like me. I think that's why he put me up there. You know, I had to run in with him. But when the boat was blown up, I was so, the English craft came in like this. And so I was so close to the bulkhead, it didn't take much for me to hit the bulkhead when the boat went over, and that's when I cracked my skull. And I had a big shell fragment in my shoulder. That's why I think it was in '88, because it was a shell fragment in my shoulder. That's what the medic took out when I was on the beach. So I think it was in '88. But the other boats allegedly they hit mines. I remember an explosion. I remember the boat going up and over, and that's all I remember, because that's when I whacked my head. But there was explosions, so they were just going right down the line. See, the 4 boats were coming in, and they were just going right down the line. And the machine guns would traverse. You could hear the machine gun bullets going off the ramp, you know, because the Germans were traversing like this, hitting all the boats coming in. You know. And we weren't about to go out the ramp, but before we could go over the side, the boat was blown up. Next thing I knew, I was laying underneath the rock wall on the left flank of Omaha Beach. To this day, they said 2 men dragged me ashore. I don't know whether they were from my company or where. But I told you that what saved me was I had 2 life rings on, one up here and one down here. So most of the guys only had 1 life ring. So when they went belly up, they drowned with their pack. They couldn't come back up. But because I had 2, I'm laying like this. So when the guys come by, saw me, they just grabbed me and dragged me ashore. That's what saved me. Colonel Taylor, because he made us wear 2 of those life rings. On the very left flank of Omaha Beach, where there's a rock wall that starts up. There's a big bunker there, and then there was a rock wall that started going up, and that's where they put all the dead and wounded. I kept going in and out of consciousness all day long. When I was awake, the sergeant had me taking dead bodies and wounded out of the channel. We'd go out and we'd pull them out of the channel and put them in. Remember now, we were under the rock wall, so they couldn't get them. The machine guns couldn't depress in close to get us. And they figured it was a waste of time, so they moved their fire over to Easy Red, which was flat, where they could get more targets. Now, when I was running in and out, I only went out maybe 50 meters for the body, because the tide was coming in. See, the tide was coming in. You saw little splashes in the water, but it wasn't that close to me. I didn't even care about it, you might say. You know, I was intent on pulling these guys out of the water and getting back out, getting back under cover. And the medics, we only had 1 medic. In a rifle company. Today they got 6 medics in a rifle. We only had 1, and the guy was awful damn busy. And there's a guy who should be here, Ray Lampert. He got wounded 3 times in 15 minutes, a medic, going out in the water, pulling guys in, you know. But the medics, there were so few medics initially that they couldn't take care of all the guys. And that was the bad part, and they were hurting. They give them a shot. We had 3 morphine syrettes in the infantry. We could give ourselves 3 shots. The 4th one had to be from the medics. So you had some relief in pain. Some guys didn't give themselves shots, and they were in rough pain. I went through World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Dominican Republic. I never heard a wounded guy calling for his mother. That's Hollywood baloney. Now, they say the Marines did it. You always see the Marines doing it. I find that hard to believe. Maybe they did, but not me. I never saw one. They say, GD, why me? Son of a bitch, why me? That's the first thing out of their mouth when they're wounded, you know. And they say, am I going to be okay? Yeah, and you look at the medic, and the medic is hanging. Say, kid, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You know he's dying. You know he's dying. And there was a lot of pain. But this stuff calling for mother, I never heard that in any of the wars I was in. But of course they yelled. They were hurting. See, we were first wave. The second wave came in, which was the 18th Infantry, and the third wave came in, which is 26th Infantry. They were still shooting when the 26th Infantry came in, because the 88s were way behind. The Navy did not knock them out, the big battleships. And the Air Force dropped their bombs 3 miles inland. There wasn't a hole on Omaha Beach for us to get in. The idea was the Air Force was supposed to bomb the beach so we'd have holes, foxholes to get into. Well, they were late assembling over England. And by the time they come in, the landing craft were coming in. So they didn't want to drop their bombs for fear of hitting us, so they dropped their bombs 3 miles inland, you know. And I don't mind saying the great Air Force, you know. Precision bombing in World War II, baloney, you know. I wish I had had a camera or a tape recorder. I would have made a fortune, because here I'm on the very left flank coming in, looking down at Omaha Beach, at that chaos, that confusion, the whole thing. I mean, the landing craft being blown up. I was telling my buddies, the only thing that saved us was this U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Frankfurt, came in real close without running aground and started banging away at the hill where the skipper saw puffs of smoke. He figured it was machine guns firing, and he didn't have any fire control. And this lieutenant commander was firing on his own. So he suppressed the fire up on the top of the hill. And that's what allowed us to get through the exit and get on up the hill. But I give the Navy credit, the USS Frankfurt. Not the battleships, not the Air Force, that USS Frankfurt. That's what saved Omaha Beach. But anyways, the beach, I could look down the whole beach and I saw the chaos and the confusion, the landing craft, and the guys trying to get up over it. Because I was one of the first ones wounded, 8 o'clock. So when I woke up, the bandage, the medic was working on me, putting the bandage on and everything, and I didn't feel anything, so I figured he gave me a morphine shot, you know. But I looked at my helmet and there was no M or nothing. They're supposed to put a mark on your helmet if they give you morphine so they know how many shots you had. But the adrenaline was going, you don't realize. And I laid on the beach from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock that night. Now, I didn't realize I was going in and out of consciousness all the time. I didn't realize it. And 10 o'clock that night, I was unconscious. When the medics came around, they put a tag on me. Really, I shouldn't have been evacuated because that wound wasn't that bad. But because I was unconscious, they didn't know what was wrong with me, so they put a tag on me. And I woke up on an LST heading for Southampton, England.